Right now, there are thousands of people studying for Azure certification, convinced that the certification is one thing standing between them and the cloud job. And most of them are going to finish this year with one or more badge on their LinkedIn profile and still no job offer. It's not because they are lazy, and it's not because they are not smart enough. It is because certification taught them what every Azure service does, and the hiring manager sitting across the table is trying to find out something completely different. The manager wants to know whether you can actually make a decision. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 skills that genuinely gets you hired in 2026, and I will tell you right now, not one of them is certification. Stick around for the third one because it is the skill nobody actually practices, and it's the one that separates the people who gets the offer from people who gets the polite rejection email. Hi, my name is Praveen Singh. I run a cloud consulting firm and I have been building on Azure for almost a decade, and this is Cloud with Singh. If you have not subscribed yet, please pump the subscribe button and come join my learning community because everything I teach here comes from real cloud environment and the client work and not from slide decks. Now, before I hand you these 3 skills, I need to explain why your certifications are not getting you interviews. Because once you understand this, all 3 are going to completely make sense. Alright, so here's the trap, and almost everyone falls into it. You study for certification, you watch a couple of courses, and you fill a notebook with what every service does. You know that virtual machine gives you compute, you know that storage account holds your data, and Azure SQL is your managed database. On paper, you have done everything right. And then the interview comes. They slide one scenario across the table. They say we are onboarding 100,000 new users next month. Walk me through how you would make sure the platform holds up. So why do you freeze? Because everything you studied taught you the what, and nobody ever made you answer the why. Why this service instead of that one? Why this design survived the traffic spike when the another one falls out? The certification measures whether you could recognize the right answer on the multiple choice question, and job on the other hand is asking you to reason your way to it from a blank paper. Those are 2 completely different skill sets, and all 3 I'm about to give you are the one that closes the gap. So number 1 skill is the system design, and this is the ability to take a real business problem and turn it into an Azure architect diagram that actually fits. Let me give you a concrete example. A company's checkout page keep failing over every time they run into a promotion. Now, system design is not naming the service. It is deciding how the traffic flows, what scales when the spike hits, and what happens when one component dies. What the whole thing costs business on 365 days a year when there is no promotion. And here's why this is genuinely hard. The same checkout problem at a small startup with 2 engineers and no budget looks nothing like a same problem at the bank with compliance team and 20 engineers. The services might overlap, but the right answer changes completely depending on the constraints. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Can I just ask Copilot or ChatGPT to design it for me? You absolutely can, and it will hand you the architecture in about 10 seconds. But the AI does not know your budget, it does not know your team, and it definitely does not know your data has to stay in Canada or US for compliance reasons. So if you cannot evaluate what it gives you, you're flying blind or you will not catch the part it got wrong. The way you build this skill is simple. Stop staring at the service list and start with the problem. Sketch the design on the blank paper and then justify every single decision out loud. The way you will have to do this in the interview. I have run migrations where we moved more than 50 applications onto AKS, and I promise you, not one of those decisions came off the flashcards. Skill number 2 is cost discipline, and this is the one that matters more in 2026 than it has ever been. Here's how the problem showed up. Company moved to Azure and nobody is quite sure on how much capacity they need. So an engineer picks a generous size of virtual machine just to be safe. It works and nobody complained and everything moved on to the next thing. Now 10 months or 12 months later, there's a server sized for a traffic for the spike that never arrived. So storage is piling up because nothing ever cleaned it out. One day finance teams ask why the bill went up again and nobody in the room can answer. Across the whole industry, the Flexera report puts wasted cloud spend at around 27%, and that number has barely moved in a year. Now here's the part that people get wrong. They assume cost optimization just simply mean picking a cheaper option, and it is far more nuanced than that. You might move a workload to serverless to stop paying for idle time, but at very high volume, serverless can actually cost you more than the server you were trying to replace. The cheaper option is not always cheaper, and knowing the difference is the skill. Let me give you the analogy I use for this. A cost alert that is configured but actually never fires is a smoke detector with the batteries taken out. It's still on the wall, it still passes the inspection, and it will not wake up when the room is on fire. I have looked at so many environments where every single one had a cost alert configured and not one of them would actually fire. The way you build this skill is to weave in the cost into your design from the very first decision, and on every project, ask yourself one question. Is there a way to build this that costs less and still solves the problem? Because that is what the business is actually paying you for. And the good news is you can build these skills without running up your own Azure bill or paying for some expensive vendor platform. You can use CloudLearn to work through these cost decisions in the real Azure environment and see what each choice is actually cost. I'll drop the link in the description if you want to practice there. Alright, skill number 3, the one I promised you and the one almost nobody actually practice. It is security, and specifically treating security as a way of thinking from the very first decision. And don't use it as a checklist to run at the end. A secure system and an insecure system look completely identical from the outside. Everything works, everything responds, the user is happy, right up until somebody finds a gap. And then you're not looking at the bug anymore. You're looking at a breach, and IBM puts the average cost of one at around $4.5 million. So what does practicing this actually look like? It means that when you design something, you're already asking who can reach this, what is exposed that should not be, and if this component gets compromised, how far can the damage spread before anyone notices? It is using managed identity instead of leaving secrets sitting in your code. It is the least privilege instead of handing out everybody the contributor role, and most importantly, the conditional access that actually scope to the right application. And this matter more every single month because AI is helping all of us ship faster code, and Vira Code found that nearly half of the AI generated code shipped with security vulnerability in them. So when that code goes into the door fast, somebody has to catch what is wrong before it reaches the production, and that somebody is the cloud engineer. The way you build this skill is to get into the habit of stress testing your own work. Take something you have designed and ask what breaks if this credential leaks, and how far can someone actually get. I have done work for clients in different industries, and where a single over permission identity is a difference between passing an audit and failing one. And I can tell you, the engineers who think this way from the very start are the one companies are fighting to keep. Now before I let you go, let me give you single biggest mistake I see, because it is the reason people stay stuck. Most people measure their progress by the wrong things. They count the certification they have collected and the hours of courses they have watched, and all of that feels productive, but none of it tells you whether you are actually getting better. There's only one question that does. What can you solve today that you could not solve 30 days ago? Because at the end of all this, you are not being paid to build the fanciest architecture, you're being paid to make the business money or to save business money. And every one of these skills ties straight back to that. So here's where you actually are. A year from now, you could be sitting there with 5 more certification and still no offer, wondering why nothing has changed. Or you can spend that same year getting genuinely good at these 3 things: designing system that fits the problem, controlling what they can cost, and securing them from the very first decision. Those are the skills that you can defend in any room, and they are the one that actually gets you hired. Let me know in the comment which one of these you are weakest on right now, because that is the one I would start with. Go build something real, and I will see you in the cloud.